Good evening. Many often regard their parents as some of their best friends. I mean, they're the people you first meet when you're born. They're the people who you spend the most time with, probably, and they're the people who get to know you the best. So what happens when one of them dies one night unexpectedly? Hi, my name is Owen Weichel Jr., and tonight I want to talk about how I perceive the world through death, but for the better. Because death in itself is a scary thing, or at least the whole idea of it. What exactly is death, though? Some of you are probably asking. And no, not just the ending of your lifetime or your endless rest, but more of an overarching idea. What is death? With that question now in the air and everything I've previously already said, how the hell does that relate to me whatsoever? I'm just one of 2,000 at an art school, one of roughly 391 to be exact in my graduating senior class. Before I delve a little deeper into this whole death idea, I'll give you a quick fun fact. Roughly 4.7% of students will specifically lose a parent before they graduate high school. That's before many of us reach the legal age of 18. So, doing the math, I am one of potentially 18, yes, that's a funny number, 18 potential students lacking a biological parent in the graduating senior class. And that's just basic numbers and data. So, as my big red Webster's dictionary says, gifted to me from my father as a fourth grader, describes it as death, the action or fact of dying or being killed, the end of a life of a person or an organism. This is a very liminal term. This can only begin to scratch the surface on what someone can even begin to perceive about death. The idea of someone dying is so much more than a burial procession and words in a brief, let alone a scholarly description. Death causes grief, keyword grief. And that in itself is so many more little losses wrapped up into one. Grief, defined by me, is a direct result of traumatic experiences that we as people go through. It's not just a feeling or a motive or an experience, it's a combination of all three at times. It's impacting. It's life-changing. That change is obviously apparent after a loss, and sometimes it can take time to come to the surface, but it's never something that just leaves you. It's definitely not something that hit me right away, and it's obviously something that didn't hit me until years after the incident. And that's why so many people say they feel it again all of a sudden. Almost like they're re-experiencing this loss again and again. And it's like, it's another subcategory in this whole overarching idea of death. You can probably see where I'm going with all this. Why the idea of loss is just, so scary, terrifying, and confusing. Everything you once knew changes. Your identity shifts. Your daily rituals change. Your old wounds reawaken. Your brain itself has to redefine and adapt to what was once predictable and what was once there. Your livelihood becomes a bigger word than it probably already was before. Your friends, your safety, your home, your family groups, your friend groups. I'm sure work does too for those of us who do. Bottom line, all of it changes. All of it changes. Sometimes in the biggest upsets or the smallest impacts. Grief moves very differently for each person. But, and most importantly, it moves forward with us in our own different ways. Which, at the end of the day, that's not even the hardest part sometimes. It's just the constant little reminders that reawaken this dormant grief sitting inside of you. It's like a parasite biting at you and eating away at you. It feels like your life force popping up almost everywhere at any time. Almost like a notification on your phone. A reminder. So many reminders. And reminders, they lead to memories. So many memories. Memories we once had, memories we're not going to get, and it uses all your senses to just bring your person back just to take it away again. It's the loss of 100 little new things about our original loss every day. And then, of course, there's the biggest one of all. All the time in the world left to just miss them. In my case, it's the most prominent male figure in my life. So let's revert. A 17-year-old, 18 as of 2 days ago of this recording, a student at the #1 charter in the state, a top 10 in the country. You'd think with everything I've already listed, I'd be going through this living hell. You think with all this trauma, this bad fate, for some people it's survivor's guilt, grief, as I keep using that word a lot. You think with all of that, I wouldn't be standing up here, still half smiling and cracking some bad jokes, deciding to share my story with the world. But it would be a rather half-witted ending if the story ended here, wouldn't it? And just because the average day isn't already less enthralling or lesser than for reasons I've already previously mentioned, it doesn't mean that I'm still not waking up every day and I'm still not figuring life out day by day, hour by hour, just like everybody else is. It doesn't mean that I'm failing at grief or I'm failing at moving forward. Remember that grief, it just moves us differently, but it moves us forward. Sometimes very gently and sometimes very brutally. And by brutally, I mean, like, you know, it's very hard to wake up in the morning and realize, oh, your dad's just not a holler away in another room anymore. It's also very hard to avoid all the photos on the wall or albums on a bookshelf, let alone the red Webster's Dictionary I mentioned earlier. It's very hard. And as something I've obviously previously mentioned already, and hopefully a main takeaway from everything I'm getting at, is that the grief doesn't end. In my opinion, though, the main difference between me, a fresh off the boat adult, compared to many other people in my age under a similar experience, is that I just can't let that ruin me just yet. I still have so much more to live for, so much more to experience, so much more to account for. And I know my dad would have wanted the same thing. There's just so much more to experience in this lifetime rather than sitting around and remaining a mope, or, as my dad once called me, a vidiot, a video game idiot. I also know that my dad would want me to experience all that life still has to offer. He'd want me to pursue my passions, be that in screen acting, film, or being a vidiot, or, hell, giving a TED Talk. But I also know he would want me to experience the world as he did, an adept traveler, a renowned motorcyclist, a loving father, and hell, that list could go on forever. The funniest force in a room, the liveliness of an event. Again, that list can go on. I choose to carry on what he left me. Maybe not on a motorcycle or a bike, but in other ways. But you can't forget that that too is just another form of grief carried with you. It's so easy to stop feeling yourself. It's so easy to lose control over yourself over the loss of someone just so close to you. And if there's one thing I've learned over all this self-analyzation of myself, it's that regardless of whatever happens, and regardless of how you carry yourself, whether it's a comedic, half-competent, compassionate individual such as myself, or something else, the grief that you will end up carrying with you is something that you just have to add to your self-repertoire. And it's also one of the reasons that gave me the motivation to speak on such a topic. If there's anything I hope any of you tonight can take away from this, it's that if an 18-year-old self-proclaimed funny guy can finish, and by the grace of God finish a story, it's that you alone, when you're up at night, can learn to live with whatever keeps you troubled. I know the loss my father has for me, and I know that even if I'm crying at 1:30 in the morning over it, I know it has given me the strength, the courage, the knowledge, and the stability to handle all that grief has and whatever else the world wants to throw at me. Because I know it's not something that can stop me in my tracks. And something I'm sure he's always wanted to have me say, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.